I really, really wanted to work for a multinational organization because I didn't know anybody who did.
With 15 years of tech industry expertise, Lilah Jones has delivered exceptional value to customers and partners working with organizations like Microsoft, Oracle, and now Google as the head of corporate sales for North America. She also serves as an adjunct professor at Suffolk and Northwestern universities, and she's a sought-after keynote speaker at major industry events.
I had a lot of things happen in life. Instead of letting them pass through me and let them go, I created a nook. All those things just take up residence in my body, mind, and spirit. And I wondered why I felt so sluggish and slow and unclear. That idea of being able to get still was very challenging because I thought, man, I don't want to let stuff come up. And I didn't have the courage to do that. And a lot of people don't. If you are going to share your light with others, then your life has to be a model of light. Your life starts when you start to make decisions in your life to make sure that you're always showing that side of yourself. And so it informs your life and your decisions, and all of a sudden it becomes you in every part of what you do. What does activated even really mean? Activated is prioritizing your life based on your inner guidance and wisdom versus external guidance and wisdom. One of the things I have learned is to give myself compassion and to go with the flow. And that's not always easy because, we love to control things. And that makes us seem like we're gonna live longer than we are, and you're not.
Some of the companies you work for, which is one of the biggest Fortune 500 companies out there, people will say that you need to have a level of ego to be able to navigate those spaces. How have you found leveraging your ego as a good thing? And then how do you know when to curb it and kind of bring it back so it doesn't take over you? Before we even jump into your background and history and things like that, I want to go way back. I'm curious, what were you like when you were younger? When you're like 7, 8?
Oh no, this feels like therapy. No, I'm joking. I feel like I was exactly the same as I am now. Of course, that's not correct. I have a very big family, so I'm the last of 11 children. Yeah. So I think when I was 7 or 8, I was probably running after somebody who wasn't watching me because kids shouldn't watch kids. And I think I was just trying to find my way, right? Trying to eke out my space because as you can imagine with a large family, there's always scarcity. There's always scarcity. And so at 7 or 8, I think I was just finding my way and figuring out how to do deals with my older brothers and sisters for resources. When you're the last, you got to always be kind of scrappy and always standing up for yourself. I'd say that much, especially with a lot of older brothers who, I love older brothers, but they'll test you.
So would you say that they helped you find your voice?
I'd say they helped me find my confidence. And they definitely helped me figure out how to land on my feet with changing circumstances, because there was always some new paradigm or some new situation that I was put into that I had to figure out.
So at that time, at that age, did you have an idea of what it was that you wanted to do, what you wanted to become?
Oh my gosh, yes. I wanted to be like Diana Ross. My mom used to watch like old Diana Ross movies, and there used to be a movie called Mahogany. And in Mahogany, Diana Ross lived like in a big city. It's probably Detroit. Seemed big to me. And she had, this great boyfriend. She had this fashion career. And I was like, I want to be a career woman. I want to live in a big city. I want to travel. And I want to wear really colorful dresses and spin around. And so that was kind of my thought when I was that age.
Could you sing?
Mahogany?
Could
the
you
song?
sing?
Or do I sing?
Do you sing?
Oh, I will someday. I don't currently, but that's on my list of things to do. When I was in high school, I used to compete as a singer, but it's been quite some time. So there that is.
Wow. I'm learning so much. Okay. So wait, what happened? Like, if you're in high school, why did you stop?
So a lot of people in my family are very musical. They have their own everything. They've recorded music, they play instruments, and that's been like their identity for their entire life. And they're very, very good. I wasn't as good as them. And so I kind of was like, I'm the like weakest link compared to everybody else. And so I chose not to pursue it.
So what did you follow instead when you went to high school, to college, and everything else? What was
Oh,
your thing?
business. Business, business, business. I was always into and really curious about business. And so I was always the person who was trying to figure out how can I be at the tables, be in the spaces to learn and grow. I really, really wanted to work for a multinational organization because I didn't know anybody who did. I didn't know anybody who did. And so I wanted to have that experience. And I wanted to have that experience because the few people that were like, 2 or 3 connections away from a parent or a cousin, they seemed to have really great lives. And so I was like, I want to work for a large multinational corporation and I want to have this, large corporate experience. And so I put my effort and time into that, which meant, hitting the books, networking, building my skill stack, and trying to break into rooms that I wasn't qualified to get into. And that took all my effort.
Wow. But you hear the phrase a lot of times like you can't be what you can't see. And it sounds like you flip that around. You're like, actually, I want to do something that's very different to my environment, my family. It's 2-3 degrees separated that I see people doing it, but you were inspired to do something different. Where did that come from to pursue that?
I had a mentor that helped me, and I learned from him. And one of the things he used to always say is if a person doesn't have the results that you want, don't listen to them. And what that meant was, hey, if you, got a clog in your sink and you really need to, figure it out, call a plumber. They're probably the best person. But you probably wouldn't take career advice or life advice from them necessarily, depending on what their results are. And at that time, I had a lot of people around me who would always tell me things like, I've already been where you're going. I already know what you're going to do. You should listen to me and give, and kind of go the path that I'm recommending. And I recall being like, yep, you don't have the results I want and you have no idea what I'm going to do. So I had that at an early age, and I was very specific about finding who I perceived, right? Now I know better, but who I perceived to have the lifestyle or to have the kind of life that I wanted, and then to model myself after what they were doing or to try to get in the rooms with those people and learn from them.
Was that where you would say that your sales skills and communication and different elements like that came from?
Yes, it certainly got refined that way. When I think about sales skills, I always think about it as persuasion or being able to tell a great story, hold an audience, and then recommend an action at the end. That's selling. We all do it. I think that my skills in that were fine-tuned from my family. I come from a family of storytellers. I mean, folks can tell a story. Like every dinner time was like entertainment. Like you could just sit there. People would come over to our house to just like watch what was going to happen. And so learning how to tell a good story and then adding my own special flavor to that. And if I think about who I stand for, I've always been the person who takes ideas and turns them into action. So kind of marrying those two things together is where I'd say the real foundation started for. So being able to tell a good story is where it started.
How do you tell a good story? Because we live in a time where stories are important. You need to be able to go in and stories connect with people both on a heart and a head level. But yet so many people struggle with telling good stories because they go to the logic side of things or they go to the data telling side of things. So how do you bridge that gap and tell good stories? Well, I want to get some tips and hints from you.
Well, I would say that first off, you have to be speaking from or coming from a place inside. It can't just be copied or just in your left brain. You have to kind of marry creativity and logic together. That's the underlying theme or foundation. Once you do that, if you're speaking from a place of conviction or something you believe in, typically it's a lot easier to tell the story, a lot easier. And then all the other pieces come in delivery and being able to say things smoothly and quickly, but that comes with practice. In general, if you are coming from a place of integrity and if you're speaking about something that you really believe in, the rest of it will come. I think those are the two key components. I think sometimes the challenge is People think things like data will stand on its own, or hey, here's all the logic and people will naturally come to a conclusion. But we're human beings. We're human beings. And so we have to have that connection, that emotional connection, to be able to sometimes move from one thing to another or to connect the dots. And oftentimes we forget about that as we communicate, but advertisers don't. Most commercials are stories. If you think about it, when you were younger, your parents told you bedtime stories, not bedtime facts. And you still remember them many, many years later. And so that is the glue that I think is super important. And again, it starts with A, having integrity, and then B, speaking in an area that you're super passionate about or something that you have conviction in, and the rest will come.
Do you think integrity is something that is lost in this day and age? Because I look around a lot at leads, especially some spaces I work in and operate in. I'm sure you see it as well in your world. I'm just like, you say one thing, but you do something completely different, and that's what you're modeling. And it's like integrity seems to be a lost commodity. I'm curious, like, what do you see, and how do you navigate spaces where you're not value aligned in those kind of instances?
Yeah, I think we are in a time where integrity seems to be lacking in some areas. And that's always difficult. One, when you notice it and you're like, wow, I'm in a space or I'm in a conversation or I'm in a situation that it doesn't feel like there's a lot of integrity. It's an automatic, as you mentioned earlier, moment where you realize you're not aligned. And if there isn't alignment, everything is a lot harder. And so when I think about how to navigate that, I actually think that we should be in tune enough with our feelings and our emotions to know when something feels off. How do you know it feels off? Because it's really difficult. No matter what you do, it's super hard. Or it seems like you're just conflict after conflict after conflict, and you're not seeing any kind of light at the end of the tunnel. That probably means that it's not aligned with what you either need to be doing, or that it's a situation that's just not aligned with you. I'm a huge fan of looking for ease and flow. The right things happen easily. Think about it. Think about relationships you've been in. The ones that were very, very difficult, seemed like the guy or the gal was always hard to get to, or they were aloof or whatever. And you're like, I put so much effort and time into that relationship. And ultimately, at the end, you figure, oh, that was the wrong person. Yeah. And then you meet somebody, you're like, wow, this just flows. We got together and it just flows. This is easy. I feel safe. This is great. It's probably the right relationship. It's no different in business or in the world. If something is very, very challenging or it's taking a ton of effort, that probably means there's a misalignment there, and it may or may not be a moment or a situation that's aligned with your integrity.
Well, then naturally I then go to, so I'm supposed to be writing a book, which leans into the topic around listen to the leading from the inside out, not the outside in. And one of the things that's fundamental in that book is around how so many of us struggle to actually hear our own voice. And to your point around being able to listen to that voice, to know that actually I'm not in alignment, therefore this is not the right place. Because of this, I guess because of the world that we live in, whether it's around social media or other vices, things can feel very noisy. And we can create so many multiple layers around us that our voice, by the time it gets to us, we just don't hear it anymore. So how have you learned to pass through all of that to get to your voice and to be able to listen to yourself?
So I have practices that I participate in every day, whether it be yoga or meditation or just saying no to create space. Just say no to create space. I recall when I was seeking to do this exercise, I was trying to find my voice. I was trying to learn how to meditate. It was a long time ago. Back then, it was Oprah Winfrey. She had an online course or something like that where every day she taught you something about how to meditate and how to build your best life. And this was a long, long time ago. And I recall thinking, wow, this is so hard. Like, I'm not getting it. I can't figure out how to like calm down and turn off the chatter in my mind. And so when I think about the things that helped me get closer to being able to find that silence, one of the key components was making space, prioritizing it higher than everything else. I feel like we all have enough time. We all have enough resources. We're just leveraging them in a way that may or may not be as efficient. Once something is an emergency, things happen. You tend to find the time. You tend to find the opportunity. The challenge is it's not an emergency until you have a mental breakdown. So I prioritize it and I make space for it. And it's funny how once you do that, you tend to be able to connect and hear that voice inside. So that's how I have been able to do it.
Were you ever, can you talk about that being a practice for you? It's taken a while to kind of do that over the years. Did you ever get close to, I'm going to call it the breakdown point and the burnout point before you realized for yourself that actually I need to do something different? Or was that just part of your way of approaching life from day to day?
Oh, wow. Great question. So, absolutely. I got to a point, it was during COVID. I think a lot of us got to a new level during COVID because we had time, time to think, and you're like, ah. And I realized that I had never really taken a break to get quiet more than a few minutes, right? And I had a lot of things happen in life that I just kind of, instead of letting them pass through me and let them go, I created a nook and decorated and let all those things just take up residence in my body, mind, and spirit. And I wondered why I felt so sluggish and slow and unclear. And so I took an opportunity to release all of that. Remember, it was in 2021. And it's when I did my very first offsite, my very first personal offsite. And I often talk about how, in corporate America, there's always an offsite where you talk about company results and how to be better. And a personal offsite, it's for you. It's your time to think about, what have I accomplished? What did I do last year? What am I going to do? How am I living? And it's like a way to take your own personal OKRs or your own personal metrics and tap into them and see how you're doing in quiet, not with a girlfriend, not with your buddies, not with your partner, not with your kids, but just in silence. And so I did that. It took a leap of faith, but I did it. And I got some coaching and some help to put that together. And that was the beginning of a transformational time for me. That was the beginning of really understanding what it meant to connect deep inside and really understanding what it meant to have mental and emotional blocks and really what it felt like to let it go. So that's a time that I would mark as a differentiator.
Was any part of that process scary at all for you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure I'm the only one who has had terrible things happen and, not want to talk about it or, decide that if I just put my head in the sand, maybe it'll go away. Or if I am so successful and I make so much money and I drive this kind of car and I belong to this association, then I'll never have to deal with the fact that I do have moments that I'm less than proud of, or I do have things that I'm maybe not dealing with, because now I've got all these external things. And so I am whole because of that. So that idea of being able to get still was very challenging because I thought, man, I don't want to let stuff come up. Like, I'm really afraid of what might come up. And I didn't have the courage to do that. And a lot of people don't. And so, yes, it was very scary. And again, not something I had modeled. It wasn't like, I'd be like, my mom always did this, or, oh yeah, my girlfriend's always did that. I had nobody that I had known who'd ever done anything like that. And so I had to kind of seek it out. And that's always difficult.
Is that what that inspired? Because obviously you've got your retreat, your personal offsite coming up in Mexico in May. Was that what inspired that? Where you're like, well, if I did this and I got so much value from it, I want to create that same space for other people.
Oh my gosh, yes. So as soon as I came back from that, I wrote like a 2-page document and I sent it to all the listservs that in the groups that I'm a part of. And I said, here's what I did. Here's what the experience was. Who's interested in learning more? And I got an unbelievable response. Unbelievable. I was like, oh, I guess this is a big deal for the people. So then I taught a course on it. And I got more responses. And then I kept working on it and kept working on it and start telling people about it. And then I started coaching people and I said, hey, you need to try this. This worked for me. You should try it. And that's when I realized that even though I created a guide, I've talked about it, I've taught about it, all these things, people still were having a hard time kind of putting all those pieces together. And so I said, all right, I need to throw and have a retreat to teach people, to let them see and experience how this can be to enable them to get the same outcomes. And that is where the inspiration came from for this upcoming retreat.
Why is it that you think people struggled when you gave them all the pieces?
Because oftentimes it's not knowing what to do. Usually we know what to do. You can like go on any AI assistant and get some type of feedback on what you should do about a situation. The challenge is our feeling of worthiness. We don't think we're worth it. We don't think that we're worth either the investment or the time. And I always challenge people, because if your boss came to you and said, I need you to be in Thailand next Monday for said event, you'd find a way to get there. You'd move stuff around. Well, it's not convenient, blah, blah, but you find typically, most of us would find a way to get there. But when you talk about yourself, because nobody's pushing you and because you don't have anyone that is showing you the value of it, and you don't have value for yourself a lot of times, or you don't have that level of value, you're not used to saying, oh, wait a minute. Not only am I going to take a week off or take 5 days off to go and do this, I'm going to prioritize it and make it something that is a ritual and do it every quarter. And that's what I did. And it took courage to do that. But most of us, we don't have that sense of value, that urgency. We don't see the urgency of it. And that is what I want people to understand. It is urgent. Just because society isn't telling you it's urgent, just because your partner isn't telling you you're urgent, and just because the people around you don't do it, doesn't mean it's not urgent. It is. Your connection with yourself, your agenda is an emergency.
That word you used around worthiness, I think it's such a crucial and powerful word, because I think if you don't see yourself worthy, then you're never going to invest the time or create the space to be able to do the things that tap into enabling to hear your voice. How did you get to worthy? How did you get to the space where you saw yourself worthy enough to be able to invest and dedicate that time and effort and everything else that comes with that?
Yeah. So it didn't come overnight. I found myself on this first offsite, and I got a chance to deal with a lot of things that I had, again, just created an apartment and design inside of myself that needed to be released. Once I released those things and I thawed out from all of the trauma and emotional distress that I'd been carrying. I'll give you an example, like losing people and not taking time off, because I was like, well, I got stuff to do. And so you just kind of put that grief in the back of your head and hope things will change, but they don't. Once I let all of that go and I got a chance to kind of see myself and feel myself without the burden of those emotional challenges, I unthawed. It felt like spring. It was wonderful. It was like, wow, this ice is melting and I can finally feel again. If I had to give it a physical sensation, I can feel, I can smell, I can taste. Have you ever fasted and maybe you're like doing a juice fast for a couple days or whatever, and man, that first apple you bite into tastes like an apple from the Garden of Eden. You're just like, this is the best apple ever. Well, that's kind of what it was like, right? It was like, oh my gosh, I can taste, I can feel, I can see again. And once I got that level of clarity and that level of feeling, I said, oh, there's Lilah. There she is. I do remember all these things I want to do and all these capabilities I had that I've just been like heads down and forgetting about. And it just started to bubble up. And I was like, oh, this feels awesome. I want to keep going. I want to keep going. I want to keep going. And so having these practices and learning how to do some of these things and making it a priority helped me to tap into a feeling of joy. Unbelievable, unlimited joy. And when you feel that level of joy and excitement, worthiness is simply a byproduct of it. And so, yeah, that was pretty amazing.
I love the fact that you use the word joy instead of happiness, because there's such different things as well, where the joy comes from the inside and the happiness is more external. And actually, it reminds me of I think there's a phrase that you put up, something you talked about, where you said true leadership starts from within. It's not about strategy or external success. It's about tapping into your personal power source and leading with clarity, confidence, and authenticity. That you wrote, and you kind of put that down. And that phrase, when he talks about the personal power source, really, really resonated and stood out to me, because like, ooh, that's a interesting phrase of looking at how much you have inside of you that you don't use, and what would happen when you just plugged into that internal personal power source. How much would you be activated? How much light would you pour out into the world, and all those different elements as well?
I couldn't agree more. People sometimes say, like, what does activated even really mean? I mean, that's a great question. What does it mean to be activated? And I often tell people, sometimes you can understand what it means to be activated by the opposite of it. What is the opposite of activated? The opposite of activated is when you are just going through the motions day in and day out, and you don't feel that alignment, and you don't feel that center, and it's been a while, and you don't stop. You just kind of keep going on that kind of treadmill, and you have maybe little upsides here, little excitements there, but in general, you're just kind of rinse and repeat. And so that would be the opposite of activated. Activated is when you are taking your cues and you are making your plans and prioritizing your life based on your inner guidance and wisdom versus external guidance and wisdom. How do you know it's external? Maybe it's something you saw on television. Maybe it's a story somebody else told you. Maybe it's drama that's not even yours, that you've been carrying around thinking it's real, because there's lots of stories out there. Most things are based in stories. So when you check those stories and realize, oh, half those aren't even mine. Like, I don't even believe in it anymore. My true story is X, Y, and Z, and you start going after that, that's when you're activated. That's when you're activated. So you'll know. You'll know.
I would say clarity is probably one of the keys to getting to activated. But when I think about it, what gets in the way of clarity and therefore the activation is what I'm going to call self-deception, and how easily that can cloud our own vision. And the reason why I call it self-deception is because we can easily lean into, to your point, the simple stories that we tell ourselves. We can easily lean into the environments, the things that our friends, our families, our organizations have told us. And therefore that clouds who we are. And I'm curious, based on how you're living now, how do people actually live lives that align to their inner values? Because I work with leaders who tell me, what's your primary value? Family. Yeah, I want to spend time with my husband or my wife and my kids. How much time are you actually spending? Well, I'm spending working at 70, 80, 90-hour weeks. And it's like, ooh, so you say your value is this, but the reality is that. So there's definitely a misalignment there. So how do people begin to actually live out their true values while facing the difficult decisions of the external pressures that they're living through?
Yeah, that's a great question. And oftentimes I would challenge people on, what are your values? A lot of times people just borrow values. They don't really know what their values are. They heard it somewhere on a television show, or they'll Google it quick, and they just steal somebody else's values. When you do that, it's very, very hard to prioritize your life around values that aren't authentically yours. But once you do get into your core values, if this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and you'll see around you evidence of that. I think one of the ways that people can consider prioritizing that or making that real for themselves is by stating it. Share with people, my values are X. This is where I spend my time, money, and effort. If you're like, I don't know what my values are, look at your credit card statement. See where you spend your money. You'll probably find what your values are, the things that are most important to you. Look at how you spent your time in the last month. You'll probably find your values from how you're spending your time. And then if that is authentic to you and you believe in it, then tell people that. Tell people, that is who I am. This is who I am. This is how I show up. And once you start doing that, you will give yourself the confidence, or you'll find the confidence from within to live into that purpose and that meaning. Now notice, I switched the words, purpose and meaning. If your values aren't aligned to your purpose and meaning, it can be very difficult to have the motivation or the momentum to live into those things. And so I feel like you can't have one without the other. They all go along together. So people say, oh, Purpose, I don't know. Like, I have no idea. I always encourage people, spend some time on that. Spend some time on that. And your purpose can change, but at least have an idea of what it is that you feel. What are you here to do? What do you want to be known for? If you had to write your obituary tomorrow, what would people say about you? And even though that seems morbid, it can help inform how you spend your time and how you talk about what's important to you and what impact that you have. I always tell people there's a website called 4,000 Weeks. 4,000 Weeks stands for 88 years. 4,000 weeks, 88 years. If you are healthy enough and you live long enough, the average lifespan's 88 years. You don't know if you're going to have quality of life, but it's 88 years. When you see, and you put your birthday in there, and you see how many of those weeks you've already spent, a lot of us, maybe halfway or more than halfway, then it helps to inform how much of an emergency it is on how you spend your time. And so if you put all that together, mission, purpose, values, you can be more authentic and have the momentum to live it.
What is it that, in fact, what is your purpose?
Great question. So I always tell people that I was put here. I was put on this earth to share my light with others and help them find their own. Be that through speaking, teaching, working, accomplishing, spending time with family, no matter what the activity it is. My purpose is to live my own light, share it with others so that they can lean into and grow and leverage their own. Period.
I'm just taking that in. It sounds amazing, impactful, captures both you and the environments that you find yourself in. And when you have such a strong purpose, does it make it very easy for you to be able to execute intentionally that purpose? Or does life and the world around you, which might not always be aligned to that purpose, make things a bit challenging for you to lead into that?
I would say that purpose informs everything else. So if you are going to share your light with others and help them find their own, then your life has to be a model of light. It's got to be a model of that. And so all of a sudden, your life starts to, and you start to make decisions in your life to make sure that you're always showing that side of yourself. Doesn't mean you don't have bad days, but you get my point. And so it informs your life and your decisions, and all of a sudden it becomes you in every part of what you do. And you just continue to grow into that. And it doesn't seem like work anymore. It doesn't seem like, during the day I'm this, but I really stand for this. You all of a sudden start having this level of consistency and clarity where you're operating in flow all the time, because everything you're doing is congruent.
Do you ever compromise at all? Or are you very stand first, rigid in the way that you approach things?
Sure. So I'm an absolutes person. I tend to see things in absolutes. However, there's no such thing as absolutes, right? Life is flexible. And so one of the things I have learned is to give myself compassion and to go with the flow. And that's not always easy because, we love to control things and I want to control it. We're going to do it. We're going to control it. And that makes us seem like we're going to live longer than we are. And you're not. You're not. No matter how much you control it, you still are going to live a finite amount of time, right? You cannot control against bad things happening, no matter what. You can try to plan for it. You can do some things, but you're not ultimately in control of it. And so releasing and allowing things to happen. Realizing, hey, here's the things I can control and I will do those things. And then I'm going to let go and allow it to take its course and be an observer of it versus the ego participant in the middle of it, which takes a ton of practice, but it's helpful in allowing things to happen. It's so much less energy. It's so much less energy to do it that way. And so that's one of the things I think that enables me to have my purpose have my plan, but also realize that things need to ebb and flow.
Which is what life's all about, isn't it? It's recognizing there's a time and a season for everything, and you need to be flexible and adaptable with that. And there's a word that you used, ego. And I'm curious, in your journey, especially with some of the companies you work for, which are some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies out there, people will say that you need to have a level of ego to be able to navigate those spaces and to be able to rise up in the ranks and lead the teams and all those different bits and pieces. How have you found leveraging your ego as a good thing? And then how do you know when to curb it and kind of bring it back so it doesn't take over you?
Yeah, very good point. It's almost like, you ever had a really nice outfit? Like, oh, I got this outfit and these shoes, but you don't wear them everywhere, right? There's like women oftentimes will have like the date shoes and the go out to dinner shoes, etc. But you don't wear it all the time. You use it when you need to. It's a part of your toolkit. You manage it. It doesn't manage you. And so that's an easy thing to say when I talk about shoes. When we talk about ego, man, is that a practice? And I won't say that I've perfected it. I'm just aware of it. I'm just aware of it. And so that idea of, yeah, I have an ego. Of course we all do. And God, you know what? You don't have to do much. It'll come out. You don't have to be like, oh, I just have to be in this situation and then I pull it out. It will come out on its own. It's always giving us feedback. It's like a noisy neighbor. It's in your head, always saying what you should and shouldn't do, but they're not paying any rent. And so you're like, why are you in my head talking about what I should do, but you're not paying rent, right? And so if we look at it like that and know that the ego is always there, it'll come out. We don't have to do anything special for that. And I'm not going to say it's necessary or not necessary, just knowing that it's there. We can partner with it sometimes, but being able to turn it off and to know when to listen and when not to, and to know that the ego is not us. It's just a flavor of what's going on in our head, is the way that you can be effective and use it and leverage it where you need to, but know that that's not who I am. And I can put that on the shelf when I need to. Now, that sounds like extra energy. It's not. You do that automatically. You know when to deploy things and when you don't. You know how to engage and when not to. Our brains do it automatically. So that idea of just being an observer sometimes, and maybe even doing something that a lot of the ancient philosophers used to do, which is like a day in review, where you go back through the day and you notice, okay, when did my ego come out? How am I serving myself? Is this serving me or serving my ego? How did I do in this situation? What am I proud of? Is a great way to start to monitor that, right? They always say, you can't measure what you can't monitor. Well, start monitoring your ego and see what you measure.
That means you need to have the recognition that your ego can be a problem. And like you said, you need to partner with it. But when you said it in my head, I was like, ooh, partnering with your ego. That's an interesting concept, because it requires you to think about things very, very differently. Which in the moment, when you're in certain environments, or when your emotions are heightened, shall I say, you can easily lose the ability to be able to, like, oh, my ego's coming out, let me pull it back. And it just goes off because your emotions are gone, you've kind of lost control, and you're now showing up in a particular way you don't ideally want, but it's the reality of it. How do you, I guess, learn how to be able to control more of the ego and partner with it and recognize that it's playing a massive role? Because I think it's one thing that you see it, leaders struggle with. And you're like, nah, your ego's at play there. Or you're saying you're pushing for that thing, but you really should be listening to people around you. But you're like, no, we need to get this done. It's because they're not partnering. The ego's taken over, but they don't want to listen or be corrected and have that highlighted to them, because again, that might lead to something else. So I'm curious, how do you, in all the experiences that you've had, either personally or with other leaders you worked with, how have you helped either other people navigate their ego, recognize their egos at play, or act differently in those kind of environments?
That's a really good question, and that is hard. We already talked about control and how we don't really have a lot of it, right? But we do, if we practice, we can control our mind and our perspective, our perception of things. You've heard many times that idea of paradigm shift, or looking at things in a different way, right? Reframing something. We can choose to reframe something anytime if we practice it. And so in thinking about the ego and when it gets away from us, we're all human and it gets away. Hopefully, if you're aware of it, you can stop yourself in the moment and redirect, right? Stop yourself in the moment and redirect. Sometimes, hey, we all have those days where it gets away. Guess what? You get a chance to start over the next day. The goal is to not always be in that reactive state of mind. That reactive state of mind. When we're reactive and just fighting fires or going from one thing to another, our bank accounts, our emotional bank accounts are very low. And so, yeah, you're probably going to bounce a check. And that's going to be bad. There's going to be fees, etc. So in partnering with the ego or being aware of it, it's almost like overdraft protection. Overdraft protection so that when you do have kind of that moment or those times when your ego is a little bit out of check, you got enough funds in there so that you can still continue to pay your bills and not get a lot of fees. And so how might you do that? Because people say, that sounds good, Lilah, but give me some practical tips on how I can do that. And I'm a huge fan of just starting the day over. And I have something that I say to myself every day. If you'd like, I can share it with you. And it just really centers me in on that day, helps me get rid of the day before and centers me on the particular day that we're in and starts over my experience with the ego.
I love that. That's a good, simple practice that people can do, even the moment in time, just to help them. I think that goes really well with what you're talking about, also having compassion for yourself. Because then there are times where you can then go down the spiral rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, and you just start blaming yourself and just go down and down and down and down, rather than be like, no, I'm human. And yeah, I might have messed up, but I can start the day over. I can go again. And hopefully it's a situation where you can fix and have conversations with people around you. But that's super important, at just kind of having that centering kind of piece built into that, isn't it?
Yep. And so that saying that I say to myself is, just for today, I will not be angry. Just for today, I will not worry. Just for today, I will do my work with enthusiasm and joy. Just for today, I will treat others with kindness. And just for today, I will be grateful. It's five things that just for today I need to remember. And that helps me get super centered on the current day. The other thing that helps me get super centered is spend some time in a hospice center. Spend some time around people where they're about to die. And it helps you put perspective on life. Death is a wonderful teacher. A wonderful teacher. At some point, we're going to be there too. And when you look at it like that and you spend time getting that level of perspective, is the person cutting you off in the car really that big of a deal? Is this upcoming meeting where people are talking about whatever metrics and et cetera really that big of a deal? Is the, disagreement you had with your kids or your teenagers, I have teenagers, that really got you off of your center really that big of a deal? No, it's not. It's not. So one of the things that I do when I have time is I volunteer in a hospice center. Something that you can do. And that will give you a lot of perspective and a lot of gratitude, and give you an opportunity to deal with the fear that we have around death and a finite amount of time, and see that it happens all the time. Hopefully it can inform and teach you how to live your life. And so that's another thing to consider.
How have those kind of experiences shaped you? I'm curious to understand, what was the pre-2021 personal retreat Lilah was, and the new transformed person that came back after you doing that? What the differences were?
It's like Moses going up against the 10 Commandments. I would say that, yeah. Prior to that time, I was pretty single-threaded. My conversations were pretty single-threaded. Everything was very much about looking the part, having the right friends, being in the right spaces, having the right outfit on, all external things. Very few intrinsic things. Even though I had them in there, I wasn't prioritizing them. I was just going from one thing to another, one distraction to another, one distraction to another. And one of the things that I did to realize that, to kind of disrupt myself, was I wrote my experiences, every transformative experience that I've had since I've left my parents' house. So in 5-year increments, the big things that happened in 5-year increments from the time you left your parents' house until the time that you're writing. And what I saw in there were some pretty alarming patterns that I wasn't aware of before. And I'm like, well, no wonder I haven't been able to get centered and get clear. My feet haven't touched the ground since I left my parents. I've done, every couple of years, I've completely changed things. What if I just stayed steady for a little bit? What could happen? And so being able to have that level of insight and know that those things are important and then listen to it definitely had a part in me being able to move beyond that time period.
Were you worried that that would potentially change some friendships and relationships around you? Because that's probably one of the biggest fears now people have, whether it's a partner or friends that they have, when they reach that next level of enlightenment, shall I call it, and they realize that, ooh, that's no longer serving me, or I need to change XYZ. It means there's some people they might need to let go of, and that is something that is not easy at all.
Mm-mm. No, it's not. I remember being taught about this. And the skit was the person threw me a ball and I grabbed it. It was easy. And they threw me another ball and I grabbed it and it was easy. Then they threw me the third ball and that one started to get tough. And then they threw me another ball and then I was like, whoa. And they threw another ball. And guess what? Sooner or later, I dropped all of them because I couldn't carry them. And so the idea on that was, when you're trying to do something, it's very difficult to do it if you're holding all these balls. Sometimes you have to let them go. And so if you want to get to where you're going, you have to change what you're doing. You can't get what you want to do. It's very difficult to go after what you want if you're not willing to let go of what you have. Let go of what you have. Let those balls drop and open up your arms and see what comes to you next. It's very hard to see what comes to you next if you're walking around with all these balls all the time. And so when it comes to relationships or people or things and that fear of change, that's something that we have to check ourselves on. Because if you really want transformation, or if you really want XYZ goal, or you want to manifest this said thing, how much do you really want that if you're not willing to address and let go of, or potentially have something change in your current circumstances? It's almost like an oxymoron. Those things don't go together. And because of that, most people are kind of stuck there. They don't get any progress. They're just stuck. And they say, well, I did all that affirmation stuff, or I did all that, it didn't work. It's because you're stuck. It's because you're not really ready. You can't really hold the frequency of that next level thing yet. Something to consider.
It's a powerful thing to consider. And it's very challenging. It's very thought-provoking, but I think that's also the point. I think there are times when you need to be challenged, you need to be provoked, or you need to be given a good kick to actually get you outside of your comfort zone and get you to think about things very, very differently. If not, you just carry on in that cycle, which you might not even be aware of, unless you're doing an exercise like you just described, where you're like, ooh, there is a cycle, there's a pattern. That's why things aren't making sense. And then you can begin to, as Steve Jobs says, connect the dots looking backwards. But you need to slow down to be able to do and actually connect those dots properly, don't you?
Exactly. I couldn't agree more.
If I'm listening to this conversation right now, I'm like, all right, I hear what you're saying, and I need the help. I need the tools. I need to have someone guide me, and I want to come to a place like your retreat, for example. But I'm scared of what might happen. I am scared of how I might feel. I am just scared. What would you say to that person?
Good. I'd say that's good. That's how you know you're at your edge. And when you're at your edge, something's going to happen that'll change. And it's probably going to be big. And quite candidly, I hear that all the time. A couple of people who I've been working with say, hey, Lilah, I've never traveled out of the country before. I've never traveled by myself before. I've never gone anywhere without either my girlfriends or my husband or my buddies. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I tell them, good, here's a great opportunity to stretch yourself within limits, right? You're coming to a place where, there's other women and it's safe, to stretch yourself and to find your edge. Once you find your edge and you get over this fear, what else can you get over? Just getting on that plane is a win. And the rest of the weekend is just upside. It's a win. And then once you get that feeling of, oh, wait, I did this. This was great. I had this amazing experience. Where else are you being held back by that fear? Where else are you being held back by, that comfort zone? And so I always tell people, if you're scared and you're like, I would never do that, the more self-talk you have about participating, the better. That's even better. That is a wonderful way to understand that this is probably something you should do.
Travel is part of your values. How and why is that a value that's key?
Well, when I was growing up, we didn't travel because we had too many kids, right? And so it was like, that was not, our travel was piling up our Lincoln Town car, going down to Arkansas, right? And I don't know, sleeping on somebody's floor. And so while those were wonderful experiences, I didn't love travel. I was like, oh, this is awful. Like, I never need to do this again. What made it become a part of who I am and really what my brand is, and that idea of, seeking out new adventures, was when I started to travel as an adult. And I got into some situations where I was like, either didn't know the language, or I was in a space where I got lost, or I had to get to my edge. Travel helped me find my edge. And in finding it, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Being able to have a meal in the middle of the Moroccan desert with a family that is completely authentic, and you're not worried about like, oh man, am I gonna have to drink the water, or is this gonna, I'm having Moroccan tea with just people you would never ever come in contact with, and you see how they live and how amazing it is. It informs how you live, and it helps disrupt things that you're thinking. And having those kinds of experiences over and over again, staying in an ice hotel and figuring out like, wow, this is cold. Like, I can't believe I did this. This is crazy. But doing it, right? And having those experiences, oh, that helped me find my edge. It helped me find a lot of confidence. And man, have I made some great friends in doing it. So again, not something I had modeled, because I grew up like, we didn't even stop at the what do you call it? Different restaurants, because we couldn't afford to feed all those people. We stopped at the rest stop with our Coleman red and white water dispenser and picnic dinners and lunches. That's what we did. And it was great. So I didn't have it modeled for me, but man, did I learn it. And yeah, now it's something that I not only do myself, but I prioritize it, and I do it with my family as well and my children. So they're little lovers of travel, and they can go everywhere and do everything. They can go everywhere and be comfortable with any kind of person and be comfortable. And so I feel super grateful for that.
What is your growth edge that you're going through then? I'm curious because you've gone through a lot, you've learned a lot, you've transformed, and now you're helping other people. What is your current growth edge?
My current what?
Growth edge.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know my growth edge. I know I just keep pushing the envelope. I keep pushing the envelope and waking up and being curious about something and saying, I'm going to try it, right? Or it's been so much fun following my curiosity. And so for me, growth is, am I curious about it? Yes, I'm curious about it. Let me learn a little bit about it. And then once I learn a little bit about it, is there anything that's showing up for me anywhere that's reinforcing it? And if that's the key, that lets me know I'm probably sniffing up the right tree. And what on earth can I accomplish? What could I do next? I love it. It's so much fun. It is so much fun, but it does take a certain amount of focus, but it's still so much fun. It's just so much fun. And so I feel grateful that I get a chance to experience that joy and to look back and say, wow, I've been 15 different women, I've been all these different women. And when I meet women or I'm working with women, I can sometimes like, oh, wow, I remember when I was in that phase. And I think that's what adds to people's experience of being able to work with me, certainly. But yeah, I think that edge is, I'm always defining it.
How do you define leadership?
In what context?
Whatever you decide. Because that's part of the clues. Like, how do you look at when you hear that word leadership? What comes to mind for you?
The opposite of leadership, not the opposite, but a component of leadership, and that component is followership. Who's with you? Who's with you? So if you are this leader and you stand for said values and you're going out and you're doing your work in the world, who's with you? Who's following you? Who's championing your ideas? Who's saying, yeah, you got it? Or yeah, I'm going to follow you. Yeah, I want to be right where you are. How often are people helping you with your agenda? How often are you getting people reaching out to you saying, hey, you know what? I see what you're doing. I want to help you. It's followership. That's support. That's a great way to test and to understand or to see leadership by who's with you. And do they have to be there? Are they your direct reports? Or are there just people that are in and around your network that, again, believe in what you're doing and want to align to it?
This is the force that is Lilah. I said it right at the start, we're going to get a masterclass, and you have delivered. Like, there's so much in here around just being authentic, being you, learning to listen to your own voice, and also around even the journey that you've gone through, which the richness of that journey, or the richness of exploring and expanding that journey, allows you to be able to share that with other people in the way they deliver, so you can meet them where they are as well. Which I kind of loved so many of the examples that you kind of gave that resonated with me, just listening to you just talk and share. So people want to learn more. One, connect with her on LinkedIn, because she drops gems on a regular basis. But then you have a website, you got a newsletter, and of course you have the retreat coming up in May as well, that you can definitely get involved in. Go out, learn about yourself, connect with yourself in an environment that's going to be safe with other women as well, and you won't regret it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's where people can connect with me. If I had to prioritize, the newsletter is a great place because it's like the culmination of everything, and all the writing is all in there. So if you're like, okay, well, where should I prioritize newsletter? And then if you're free May 1st through 4th, we would love to have you join us in Mexico. It's going to be phenomenal. And I feel super fortunate to be able to serve in this way. So yeah, I look forward to seeing everybody there.
This is Everyday Leadership. We will see you all next week.